Welcome back. Now in this volume 16 of 5 questions a day, we are going to make a small change, and instead of 5 questions, let me give you interesting and very powerful 5 points today. And these 5 points are needed to ace your PMP 2021 exams. In fact, these are some of the many points that I'll be presenting to you. However, the source of these 5 points are from my book, which has been exceptionally well accepted in the name of Ninja Notes for PMP exams. It's available on Amazon. In fact, it's available on all sites of Amazon. It's both in paperback and Kindle. I think in India, we have only the Kindle version, and in other places, we also have the paperback version. This is all in color. Anyway, let's get into these 5 important notes. Now, what I've done is I've taken up some agile notes because I also know that there are quite a few persons who are from a different industry. And if they prefer to clear PMP exam, they also have to make sure that they understand agile at least as far as clearing the PMP exam. Now, there are a lot of industries where agile is never used. In fact, there are many IT and software industries where agile would never be used. But then people need to know. And that's where a lot of people get confused, make a lot of mistakes. Well, there you go. Let's start with the very first point. Point number 1. And all these points are taken from the Agile Manifesto. In fact, there are 4 elements of Agile Manifesto, and let me explain each of these 4 elements. Now, some of you may say, hey, Maneesh, this is just a manifesto. How does it really affect my exams? Well, just wait and watch. You'll be surprised how important these are for PMP 2021 exams, right? Now, Agile Manifesto, the very first one, it says individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Now, what this means is that processes and tools are important. They're definitely important, and it's not that in Agile we don't use any processes and tools. We do. But if you compare that, or if these processes and tools are coming in the way of individuals and interactions, we have to actually give more weightage to individuals and interactions. Now, what does this mean? Individuals and interactions means, working with people, connecting with them, collaborating with them, understanding what their requirements are. Now, let's say in the PMP exam, they give you an indication that the project is all about Agile. And, sometimes they will not say it's an agile, but they will simply say in your current iteration, right, you are working on so-and-so user story. That alone should give you an indication that, hey, these guys are talking about an agile project. In many questions, they don't just mention agile, right? So you have to read the scenario and understand, hey, are they talking about incremental project? Are they talking about an iterative project? Are they talking about a hybrid project, agile project, or are they talking about a traditional predictive project, right? So that's how you need to read the questions. Keep that in mind at the back of your hand. Every time you read a question, ask these questions. Is this question talking about predictive? Is this talking about iterative, incremental, agile, or hybrid? All right, now let's focus on this. Once you know that they are talking about agile, and the scenario of the question is saying something like, the customer has just provided you certain changes, and they're very interested in those changes. These changes were not discussed earlier, and now your sponsor is telling you that you should use the change management process with the client. The organization has a standard change control management process. They have to use that with the client. And the answer is no, you don't use the change control process because 2 things. One is this point, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So, the changes said by the customer takes precedence over the process. That's point number 1. Second, when it comes to agile, there is nothing known as a change control process because the very reason you're going into an agile methodology is to adopt or adapt to changes. And that's it. So this is the reason why you should be good with Agile Manifesto. Many questions in PMP exams connected to Agile are based on your understanding of Agile Manifesto and whether you can take decisions based on the scenario. So now you know. Got it? Anyway, but remember, all these points about Agile Manifesto, first ensure that the scenario of the question is talking about Agile. Anyway, so any projects that use Agile methodology is an evolutionary project, hence iteration and stakeholders is more, interaction and stakeholders is more important. This does not mean processes and tools are unimportant. All right, point number 2. And that's the next manifesto. Working software over comprehensive documentation. See, again, the same point. Comprehensive documentation is really important. In fact, documentation is very important. A lot of people get a misunderstanding or have a misconception that in Agile, you really don't have to use documentation. Absolutely incorrect. You have to do tremendous amount of documentation, but if it is coming in the way of creating something small and showing to the customer fast to understand in which direction that the customer wants us to go, have we understood the customer well or not? That's the reason why we had small iterations from just 1 week to 4 weeks, right? So very quickly make something, show it to the customer. If you are not sure about the requirements, we should not focus too much on documentation. First, make something, go through a small iteration, make something, or just do a prototype, show it to the customer. Get some feedback, figure out are we going in the right direction or not. And from that, whatever learnings that you get, then document and move forward. That's basically what it means. Now that I've explained it so much, you can actually see a scenario in PMP exam and understand whether they are talking about comprehensive documentation, whereas they should be actually talking about working software. Remember, again, when you get some scenario of this kind, remember you have to ensure that you are talking about the scenario is talking about Agile projects. All right, let's move to the third one. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Let me explain to you how this question, most of the, and I'm sorry, I'm actually being a little critical. If you go to Udemy, in fact, I've seen quite a few of these material on Udemy, and I'm quite disappointed, to be honest, but I'll not take names. I'll simply tell you that all of them have got this part absolutely incorrect. In fact, there are people in Udemy and other courses where they've actually written as one of the question answers that, you know, the customer is saying that they want a fixed price contract, but they want constant deliverables, right? And that's when, and the requirements are not clear. They'll give you a scenario, something like this. Then the point is, should you use fixed price contract or not? You have to push back and say, well, your contract is not allowing you to go for Agile project. That's the whole point about this. Your contract, the format of your contract should allow customer collaboration. But fixed price contract is not meant for this. Fixed price contract, at worst, you can use it for incremental, where the requirements are still clear. You are, building up the project in iterations, but the requirements are clear, right? But when it comes to iterative projects, when it comes to Agile projects, there is no way you can go for a fixed price contract. And this part, all the other trainers, for some reason, unexplained, they've got this wrong. Right? So please stick to this and get it right in PMP exams. Contract negotiation should be such that they should not hold you from being flexible with the customer. If the requirements change, the contract should not prevent you from addressing those changed requirements. That's basically what it means. Got it? All right, let's move on to point number 4. This is the last of the manifestos. There are 4 manifestos and we've gone through all of them except this one. The 4th one says responding to change over following a plan. Now, this is one thing that I like about one of the presidents of US called Eisenhower. Now, Eisenhower, some people call it Eisenhower, depending on which country or which side of US you come from or which part of the world you come from. Your pronunciation changes a bit. But keeping the pronunciation and diction aside, let's just talk about the gentleman, Eisenhower. Now, this gentleman, he was also in the World War, and that's history. But he was also a fantastic project manager, and he's the reason why the whole of US is connected because of these freeways. Yeah, he's the one. I mean, if you go to any of the major freeways, they're called Eisenhower this, Eisenhower that, right? So he's the person, and he did it in record time. He interconnected the whole of US. That's such a great guy he was. Eisenhower had a very favorite saying of his, and it goes like this. Well, plan is important. Having a plan is important. But planning is irreplaceable. That means you have to constantly plan. Now, this is basically what is this manifesto all about. You have to have a plan. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have a plan, but remember, we are in Agile. Things will keep on changing. And therefore, you should keep on responding to change. Iteration by iteration, keep on changing your plan. Don't get fixated on the original plan. Plans will change because that's the whole concept of Agile, constantly responding to change. And that's basically what it is, right? So this is the manifesto which defines Agile itself. This is the reason we call something as Agile, constantly responding to change. Having a plan is important. You see, you have the vision, you have the overall Agile release plan. Those plans are there, but who said they will not change? A lot of things within that or they themselves could change as the project becomes more evolutionary, more things come to light. Even the customer will make a lot of changes. Even you will recommend to customer about a lot of things that they should make a change because both of you are beginning to understand as you go along in the project what should be done. That's the whole game plan about Agile. So responding to change over following a plan. Remember, if the scenario is talking about, the customer is talking about changes, but you have already got a plan and it does not meet your Agile release plan, the point is, listen, you have to respond to change. Of course, you will not change within an iteration, but yes, you will have an option where you'll say, hey, the next of the iteration, you could actually bring that user story in or that particular requirement in based on the change. And that's the answer, because when it comes to Agile, make sure that you're responding to change over following a plan. By the way, did you know that there is a book which is completely colored and it's only about the notes for PMP exams? All the notes, tips and tricks that would probably need for acing PMP exam. And that's available in a book called Ninja Notes. Have a look. It's all colored from inside. All right, where do you find this? Ninja Notes for PMP 2021? Well, let's go to Amazon.com. Pass Notes, right? That's it. Read and Pass Notes. That's my publication. And you have a few other books, and this is the book that I'm talking about. Now, this is available in two different versions. One is Kindle, which is for $9, and the paperback, which is completely colored from inside, is $38. Paperback is now available only for US and a few other European and Japanese clients. In India, we have only the Kindle version. If you're from India, you'll just have to go to Amazon.in, and over here you'll have to type the same thing, read and pass notes, and voila, you'll get the same. So you have for $449. That's it. So let's move on to point number 5. And here, let me take a moment to differentiate between product backlog and iteration backlog. This is one area where most of the people and some guys, even from Agile background, tend to make a mistake here. It's quite a simple thing, right? But people not from Agile background, well, for them, this is completely new concepts, new terms, and therefore it's understandable that they will make a mistake. What is worse, these things have not been explained practically by so many other trainers, right? So this is where I'll explain to you very clearly the difference between a product backlog and iteration backlog. In reality, if you were doing a real project, particularly a large IT Agile project, there are actually 3 backlogs. You have the product backlog, you have the release backlog, and you have the iteration backlog. But when it comes to PMI or PMP 2021, they basically talk about 2 backlogs. You don't have to worry about release backlog. So you have the product backlog and you have the iteration backlog. Now, product backlog is the original document, right? It contains only high-level requirements. It does not contain any detailed requirements whatsoever. In fact, content of a product backlog can be simply referred to as ideas from the customer side. It could be even called as epic, 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 like a huge conglomerate of stories, right? So you can call them epic, or you can simply call them high-level requirements. They are not requirements themselves. They're just ideas, epics, or high-level requirements. The customers may have a lot of ideas, and therefore we just document it somewhere. And that's called the product backlog. That's what it does, right? That's it. Now, what happens is that these product backlogs have to be earmarked for certain, releases. And when you do that, you need to understand that, those releases would have to be broken down into sprint. Right? So sprint is also called iteration. So series of iterations will make up a specific release. Now, in which sprint are we going to do which specific part of the high-level requirement? So we break it down in sprint backlog or iteration backlog. We break down the high-level requirement or part of that high-level requirement in the form of detailed requirements. And these detailed requirements are called user stories. Right? So don't worry too much. User story is equal to detailed requirements. Epic is equal to high level requirement. Where is epic written? Product backlog. Where are user stories written? Iteration backlog. You can even call it sprint backlog. That's basically the difference between a product backlog and iteration backlog. Now you would wonder, hey, wait a second, Maneesh. The product owner, which document does he work with? Well, the answer is with both. Yes. Product backlog is the main document for the product owner. But when it comes to even iteration backlog and sprint backlog, the backlogs, basically whenever you see this term called backlog, remember requirements documentation. You have this product backlog is a high level requirement document, and sprint backlog or iteration backlog is a detail level requirements document. Keep that in mind. Now, in a sprint backlog, the teams, they work with the product owner to find out the different stories, how they understand it. But then the ownership of this backlog also still belongs to the product owner. So the point is, when we talk about product owner and I simply ask you, hey, who is really responsible for the backlogs? Product backlog as well as iteration backlog, there is only one answer, and that is the product owner. So now I hope you understand the difference between the two very well. There's nothing to it. It is just different terminology that is used in Agile. Otherwise, it's not that different. All right. Got it? All right. With this, we come to the end. Let me thank you for watching. Subscribe to it and do press the notification bell. Right? Go ahead and comment if you have any points that you need to clarify. Go ahead and comment. I love to interact with people. Not a problem. If you need anything, I'll let you know. Right? And do share with people. There are a lot of people who want authentic material, something that explains things to them in a proper manner. Well, go ahead and share. Right? All right, guys. Thank you for watching. And you know what? 5 questions a day, 5 PMP questions a day, sometimes 5 points a day will be available every single day till 30th, not 31st, till 30th of December 2021. That's my commitment, and you'll find one every single day. Take care. Best luck for your PMP exams.